Hi, and welcome to the Raw Heart and Soul podcast. I have today with me G Cormack. Hi, G. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Um, we haven't met face to face before this now, which is really cool. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you. You were on a call with us at Urban Surf as our staff. We had a staff meeting, staff session, where you were talking about smooth star skating. So we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Yep.
I wanted to start though, because I know very little about you, but when did you start with your snowboarding and how far did you progress with that?
I started snowboarding very young. I grew up skiing. Actually, I think when I was one was the first time that my mom we would go on a family trip every year down to the snow with my grandparents and all my cousins and stuff. We're all very, very close family. And so, yeah, just kind of the love for the snow started there. And then I started skateboarding when I was very young and surfing. And so snowboarding was quite a natural transition for me. So I think I was around 8 or 9 or something like that when I got on a snowboard for the first time. And then like a year later, the school that I was at was just like, oh yeah, we're doing some competitions. You'll have a week out of school. So if you want to go down, and I was like, yeah, man, a week out of school. Awesome. And then I did really, really well in all of my contests and, ended up getting on a scholarship with NSWIS, which is the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and it all just kind of spiraled from there. Then I moved down to the snow and was doing training down there and living down there, and surfing kind of took a back foot to that. And
you're down in Jindabyne?
Yeah, so I went to school down in Jindabyne, and we would train at Thredbo. I was originally trained as a racer because at the time they didn't really have half pipe or slope style or border cross or anything like that. So it was kind of GS, and that was it. And so, it was me and Tora Bride and a whole bunch of us that were in little race suits going down the hills. And then when half pipe and border cross kind of came into it, we all started transitioning into that area. I was very much a border cross rider for a long time. I loved border cross and I did very well in border cross. I liked the adrenaline, the intensity, and how scared you were because you never really knew if you were going to make it to the bottom of the hill. And then I also applied to go into the half pipe team and I qualified for the development squad. So yeah, it all just kind of went from there and was competing and traveling internationally and yeah, just having fun. And then I had an injury that took me out and had some complications with my heart and stuff. And so unfortunately I had to retire from snowboarding. So
how old were you when you retired?
I think I was around 20, 21. Yeah, so I retired from snowboarding and had some operations and just had to kind of learn how to use my body again, which is, I think, quite a challenge when you're training. I was with the Olympic Development Squad, so yeah, we're training as Olympic athletes, and your body is your whole life. To then realize that maybe my body isn't something that I can rely on as much anymore was at such a young age a massive reality check. And so yeah, I was advised to get back in the water, and that was probably the best thing that I could do because when you lose your career at such a young age, obviously, there's the mental challenges that come with that. So I
was going to say, how did I grew up in Canberra, so I grew up around a lot of athletes because we lived right near the AIS, and that's why I asked about Jindabyne because that's my Tathra is where I grew up on the beaches in.
Oh yeah, cool.
Vega. Yeah, but knowing people who have been through that, so my girlfriend went to one of the schools that actually held a lot of the athletes and the Olympians used to go to for year 11 and 12, and seeing injuries and things like that. How did you cope with a change in your identity?
Well, to be honest, not very well. I grew up struggling at school. I have a learning disability. I'm dyslexic, so I can't read and write very well. So sport was really my outlet. So yeah, to come out of a sport so young and to not have any backup, because my brain doesn't really work in a lot of the kind of stock standard ways that is required to have a degree or to go to university or to have an office job or to even wrap my head around technology and computers. And it wasn't something that I could do. So I was like, okay, well, if I don't have the ability to use my skill, then what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a reality check, and I did have to reassess everything and kind of figure out who I was and what I had to offer, to try and find my value in life and what I could possibly make out of my life, because I am someone that I do have a lot to offer, and I'm someone that kind of wears my heart on my sleeve, and I give everything, you know, even if it's just one or two things, I'll give absolutely everything that I have to those things. And I didn't want that to go to waste. And I've grown up with family members in my immediate family with mental illness. So I'm very aware of how much it can consume someone's life. So I then that's kind of when I got back into surfing and figured out how to be in an environment where I could safely challenge my body and learn with patience and flexibility and time to listen to how my body works in its new forms, and understanding with the mental battles that I now had from having injuries and being shaken at such a young age, how to overcome things in a way that is productive, and acknowledging the emotions and the anger and frustration and hatred and fear that I had, and actually using those in a positive way. That was a real adventure for me, I think. You know?
So did you go through a surf therapy program or something like that?
No, so I actually did something that I was not advised to do by my doctors and my family. I basically packed my bags and I moved to an extremely remote area on the west coast in the north of Bali, and lived there for almost 10 years. The first 2 years was just spent solo there, where I wanted to actually listen to the thoughts in my head and not be told to block them off, or, you know, to take medication to quieten things down. I actually wanted to verbalize all the things that I felt and the things that I was experiencing and thinking. And I felt that when I verbalized things, it made it more of a reality. And then I was able to process things a little bit better. So my brain works very differently to, I think, most people's. So your stock standard ways of dealing with things wasn't really working for me. So I had to kind of trust my own ability to keep myself in a safe space, but also explore who I was, what I was capable of doing, pushing myself into really dangerous spaces, but being able to bring myself out of them. You know, and a lot of those, obviously, if you've been dealing with athletes, an athlete at a young age is kind of they get taught to really believe in themselves. You know, like, you got to believe that you can be number one. Otherwise, like, what's the point of doing what you're doing, right? You know, like, if you're trying to be the best, you got to believe that you can be the best. You got to train to be the best. You got to push to be the best. Everything is about being the best. And I think that in some ways, some people struggle with that, but for people like myself, I think that's a really productive thing, because you're forced to believe in yourself. And I think a lot of people don't believe in themselves and what they're capable of doing. And so learning to believe in myself at a young age actually helped give me the tools to manage struggle as I got a bit older, if that makes sense.
Makes absolute sense. I coach a lot of people. Like I just said to you, I've been coaching for 15 years. So I've been in the fitness space and recently just crossed over into the surfing space. But a lot of my clients, I don't think there's any human on the planet who doesn't have some sort of mental health issue that they need to not deal with, but look
Come
after.
to terms
Come
with.
to terms with and look after. Yeah, that's probably a good way to say it. So my recent area of study has been in BPD, which is borderline personality disorder. So it's quite deep and
Yeah.
quite huge. So when you're speaking like that, for a 20-year-old or 20-something-year-old even, to take yourself to Bali, in the remote area of Bali, and spend 2 years solo exploring what's going on in your mind is incredibly mature.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I do get a lot of people saying that when they get to understand the stories of kind of where my coaching comes from, and the background of who I am and why I am the way I am. But I think from being exposed to mental illness at a young age, it allowed me to not be, I think the best thing is that it allowed me to not be so scared of it. And it allowed me to see how it can actually consume someone's life in all ways, you know, not only taking away that person's ability to make something of their life, but it also consumes the lives of everyone around them. And you know, I think one thing that we always want to try and be is a better person for everyone else. You know, we're constantly like, I want to do this for that person, I want to be able to be this person for that person and give this way, but we actually forget to nurture who we are and give ourselves that time and that space to, you know, give time for ourselves and be selfish enough to do that. And I'm not afraid to say that I actually come before anyone else. I need to make sure that I'm okay before I can be anything to anyone else, whether it's a coach, whether it's a partner or a mum. Exactly, you know. So I think having that pressure and always wanting to be more and be something for everyone else, it consumed me, and I realized that, you know, I actually just need to learn to love myself and be accepting of who I am. And then hopefully if I do that, I can actually be something for everyone else, you know? So
I think there's a lot of people who can give lip service to what you've just said, but I don't think there's many people who actually live that. And you seem to be living that.
Yeah, well, look, in my work now, about 80% of my work is helping people regain control in their lives in all sorts of ways. And I sort of use the distraction of surfing to allow that to happen. But it's communicating. I like to say that I am emotionally aware instead of saying that I am emotional or I am emotionally fragile or I am emotionally aware. So I am very sensitive. I am very aware of the feelings of the people around me, and I am not in any way ashamed of that. I am very proud of who I am, the way that I process things, when I get upset, when I get angry, when I get sad, when I get happy. You know, I'm okay with those processes. And I think when you're around people that aren't ashamed of who they are and what they've been through, then that actually empowers you to accept who you are. And I want to be that person because I'm not ashamed of who I am, and I was for a long, long time. And now that I'm not ashamed, I feel light and I'm happy and I'm accepting of everyone who is whoever they want to be, and it's great. Like, it's not this competition, and I think people struggle to come to terms with that. And I did quite young, but I had to go through a lot to get there. And I'm really grateful now, but at the time it was probably the scariest thing that for me and also for the rest of my family to observe and to watch, I think. So
yeah, from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So you were in Bali for 10 years. Did you start coaching surfing over there, or was it not till you came back to Australia?
Well, I was coming in and out. So after my injuries, I actually moved. My partner at the time had gotten his coaching qualifications, and I moved to the South Coast here in Sydney, just south of Sydney. And I was still in my rehabilitation for my injuries. And so I kind of just stayed at the surf camp and watched, and I was like, God, these guys have got the best life. Like, they literally just play in the water all day. They're super fit, super healthy. They're living off their adrenaline. They're, you know, and they're just having fun, and they're giving so much positivity to people who are just so grateful for the smallest things, right? And I just went, you know what, like, that's perfect for me, because I get to use my body, which is my skill, and I get to be around people that are just super energetic like me, where they just want to run themselves into the ground physically, and not use their brains too much. You know, I'd rather be physically exhausted than mentally exhausted. And so then I got my coaching qualifications, which was probably one of the scariest things I'd ever done, because I never, ever, ever spoke in front of a group, or in front of anyone ever. Also being someone who is dyslexic. So, you know, I never read in front of a classroom. I never stood up in front of a classroom to do anything. It was really out of my comfort zone. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give this coaching thing a go, and why not? I've got nothing else to do. And I grew up surfing, so I have a certain amount of natural skills. I've lived by the beach my whole life. And it just became a really natural thing for me. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it from day dot. It was just something where I got goosebumps when a client caught their first wave, and yeah, you know, the stoke. And then I realized that there was, you know, not that many female coaches out there, and the girls really resonated with me more, and they were starting to ask to have the female surf coach. And the challenges that I faced with my male clients, and, you know, things like that. And that's kind of where that all started. And that was in 2007. So long time ago.
Interesting you should say that about you getting your surf coach qualifications, because like I said to you, I only recently got mine. So this time last year, where are we now? Yeah, so right before COVID, I got qualified.
Yeah.
But it was one of the hardest things. It was one of the hardest things I've had to do, because I had to teach myself how to surf, but also to learn how to swim. And I'm scared of the water, not scared of the water, I'm scared of the fish in the water. And I'm not scared of sharks, I'm scared of the fish. So to overcome that fear and to get into the water, and the first part of my qualification I actually didn't pass. So it was the swim that we have to do down here in Victoria, which was, we have to choose between 2 or 3 that we can do. So a bronze medallion or the supposedly shorter and easier version. So I chose the shorter and not so easy version, and failed completely. Luckily only in front of like 4 people, but it was a big learning curve for me to do that. So it was interesting.
There's actually a lot of people that fail that test. The actual swimming part, so many people fail. They completely they don't understand actually what is required, and so I've been renewing my certification since 2007, and it is that thing that people struggle with is actually that swim, surprisingly. So
yeah, understandably. And well, I can understand it, because I didn't pass it the first time, got it the second time, but did it a different way. But it's and I've kept up my swimming. I specifically kept training all through last year, one for the water, because I do cold water therapy. So I swim in our backyard in Melbourne here, and it's freezing cold, but did it for that. But also, and I swim every week, at least once or twice a week, because I know that qual has to be requalified every year. And I know that if I let it go, it's still, I would say it's not a fear anymore, but it's still something that I know I have to continually work at, like my mental health, because if I let that drop, if I don't swim, coming up to requalifying, I'm going to be more frightened and more scared of failing again then. So yeah, really interesting to hear that you had that, but from a different side of it, because I think we as humans put ourselves in a position where we only see our world, and we don't get enough time outside our world to think about how other people are feeling and going through those same things as well. And I do this as a coach, as a surf coach. I'm like, I just learned how to surf myself. So I know exactly how you're feeling, because I was here, I was you. But we get so caught up in the moment of how we are feeling for ourselves that we don't realize that everybody else in the same situation is having similar feelings around us. But we put the spotlight on ourselves too much. I think taking the spotlight off ourselves and realizing that there's other people in that situation as well, or feeling that way, develops our empathy.
Yeah, and yeah, realizing that we're not the only one going through something, and I think also appreciating that other people can end up in a situation not because of the severity of something. So, I think people are always like, oh, well, mine's not as bad as someone else, and so there's this comparison, and it's going, well, there is some reason why you have ended up where you have ended up. And it's not a comparison. We're not in a competition here. But what we're trying to do is actually get you to move through that process, and so that you can end up where you want to be. And so, I mean, there's so many different areas of mental health, and what triggers things, and how people respond. But I think people just understanding that we all process things differently. We all process the same thing differently, and being okay with the way that we process it, and being okay with the way that it affects us, and learning to see what our patterns are, so that we are actually able to naturally pull ourselves out of it. So when I do ocean therapy here, we call it ocean wellbeing here, and it's helping people understand the patterns of how they process things, and actually using their natural environment to help pull them out. So one thing, I had to do a lot of therapy when I was younger, and one thing that I struggled with was the four walls of the room, and the intensity of that space, and the intensity of sitting in that seat that everyone else has sat in, and it was an environment that just didn't work for me. Whereas if I go under the water and I yell at the top of my lungs, and I swear, or I scream, or I cry, and then I pop my head up, and I'm in society. Nothing's stopped. I don't have four walls. Life keeps going. It doesn't stop for me not being okay. And so if I can actually reset myself whilst life is still going, I am able to feel okay and feel like I've regained control, not being dependent on someone else, and not being dependent on that kind of environment of the four walls that me personally I struggled with. Everyone processes it differently. Everyone needs a different environment, and for a lot of people that space does work, but for me it just didn't. And so that's what we use in our school, is people come to us because they feel that the ocean is where they can kind of release that fear and anxiety and stress, or happiness or anger, or whatever it is, and they want to learn to be able to find what their rhythm is in the water, so that they can reset.
Surfing is just the vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah, we call it the distraction.
Yeah.
And then afterwards I'm like, what you just achieved, and I'm like, oh my God, how did you do that?
Yeah, because they forget that they are even out there to learn to surf, because
totally.
The positive effects, and I've seen this through the WOW program that I'm part of down here, the positive effects that happen, like the ability to learn how to surf, that's just such a small part of what happens out there. Like, there's so much more that comes from being in the ocean, or being in the water, being in the lagoon, but being around other people where you feel safe and feel comfortable, and feel able to express what you need to express in whatever way you need to in a safe environment. So yeah, I totally get you on that. So you run your school in the Northern Beaches, on the Northern Beaches of Sydney?
Yeah, well, I actually coach all over the world, but our home base is here in Sydney. We have 5 locations, starting from the kind of close to the beginning of the Northern Beaches all the way up to the very northern area. And so we run our local programs here. We do everything from introductions to surfing to high performance training. We do, movement stuff. We do online training. We do pool training. But we also, that's kind of the puppy here. And then we do clinics all over Australia. And then I travel internationally, and I do a lot of work internationally as well.
Are you coaching athletes at the moment on the WSL?
No, I'm not coaching anyone on the WSL at the moment. So we do use a lot of the pro surfers, obviously we use a lot of their footage, and we use them as examples for a lot of our junior up and coming athletes. So yeah, I find high performance training is very interesting. There's a lot of different elements to coaching a junior athlete. You're not just coaching the athlete, you obviously have to deal with the bubble that comes with that athlete.
I'm so glad we're talking about this. Yes.
Yes. So I actually really enjoy working with coaches. So I work a lot with state coaches, international, national teams, with the coaching platforms there. I coach coaches. That's probably my favorite area of work. So I travel around, I have a look at the programs that they have embedded for their athletes. I have a look at their client base. I have a look at the wave setup that they have. I have a look at what they're doing with their online training. And then I go and implement a lot of different programs to help with the structure of the progression with their athletes, with their junior athletes, or, you know, their client base. So whether it is a learn to surf school, an intermediate surf school, high performance surf school, whether it's a wave pool, whether it's, you know, it could be anything. So I work a lot with coaches, which is really my field of what I love to do. But yeah, we've got so many different elements to Chick Surf School, but we have the school and then we have me as a high performance surf coach, which is, they're two very different areas.
Yeah. How important is land-based training for surfing athletes?
Yeah, it's just as important, if not more.
Thank you. Yes.
So I did write some programs, some online training programs that have become very popular internationally. And that is kind of my area of expertise, is simulating surfing on land and problem solving. So creating scenarios on land that help an athlete or a student, whether you could be beginner, intermediate, or advanced, helping that person understand body rotation, incorrect postures, different sections of a wave, and what is required of our bodies and the board to be able to get the outcomes that we want, and then repetition. So I also do strength and conditioning programs, and all this sort of stuff. So it is super important, because with surfing, we've never actually had an environment, now that we have wave pools, which is amazing. But we've never had environments where we can repetitively do something, so that we create muscle memory. We can understand mistakes. We can understand when we're doing something right, and the results of doing something right, even in a wave pool. Being able to slow down a specific maneuver or generating speed a specific type of way to help get the results that we're after has never been created before. So the on-land training allows someone to understand what they need to do to be able to, let's use speed generating as an example, which is the most important part of surfing that people overlook all the time. A lot of people, especially intermediate to low advanced, aren't generating speed properly, depending on the type of wave that they have, to be able to get the results that they're after.
They just want to do the big turns.
Yeah, they just want to do the big turns. You know, that looks a lot more exciting. It's
That's
like
sexy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but everything is actually determined by the way that you generate speed, because that leads you into those maneuvers. So let's say speed generating as the example, actually to be able to break down every single part that your body needs to do to be able to generate speed properly, to be able to have the space and time to be able to do that, has never really been done. And even in a wave pool, you have a wave, it's going to run a certain speed. And so you have that specific amount of time to get it right. Otherwise, you have to go and do it all over again. Whereas on land training, we have a flat surface. It is a continual environment that doesn't change. So we can actually listen to the body, what the body is doing, and how we correct it in very, very, very simple, slow movements, so that when it's done fast, when it's done in that intense couple of seconds or a minute or whatever,
The body's got the memory to go straight to it.
It can do it straight away.
The neural pathways are opened, and you've practiced it enough so that pathway is really strong, so that when they get in an environment when it's unstable, their body goes to that straight away.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't, because we haven't had that time to be able to do that. It's things that people haven't really focused on before. So that is a lot of my work, is actually breaking down the very minute things and actually getting people to understand what their bodies need to do, so that they can then perform it in that split second when they need to do it. They actually know what to do, and what it ends up doing is simplifying their surfing. I like to say minimal movement, maximum energy, not maximum movement, minimal energy. So we want to move minimally, but have the full range of our bodies to be able to get maximum projection in that minimal movement, so that we get the best result, right?
Full expression of that energy. Yeah, to fully express that energy in a controlled way, in a way that's not like, John. Because he's great with his aerials, and he was to start with, but he wasn't controlling them. Whereas now he's come back and pulled it back in a little bit, and has got a better understanding of how to do that in a way that's not going to damage himself, but also going to enable him to express that in not just one heat, but throughout the whole tournament.
Yeah, and when because a lot of people refer to professionals, and most people aren't professional surfers. They are that intermediate to beginner. You know, with a beginner, simply just looking up instead of looking at your feet, that slight movement of looking up instead of looking down, or pointing your arm up instead of having it down, or things like this, bending your knees that little bit more. It's that very subtle thing that has a huge result in our surfing. And when you have to perform that very quickly, it means that progression can happen quite slowly. So with the on-land training, we're able to allow people to have much faster progression in a very short period of time, because we're getting them to understand their bodies. That knowledge of what their bodies need to do, and the very subtle movements end up having an amazing result in the water.
And they progress that much more quickly.
Yeah, so it is, the on-land training is extremely important to progression, no matter what level you are.
How much of your on-land training incorporates mental, spiritual, and emotional, diet, lifestyle factors?
With the on-land training,
do you delve into that? Because I should probably explain, if you haven't heard before, I'm a CHEK practitioner. Have you heard what that is?
I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
A CHEK practitioner, we look at the body holistically. So we look at physical components that help a person move and move functionally within their range of motion, but within what we know are the normals of posture and movement. So complete comprehensive assessment of pelvic tilt, spinal curves, rotation and extension and flexion in movement and in static. But then we also go into mental, emotional, spiritual. What organs are functioning well? What organs are not functioning well? What are they telling the body? How are they expressing through the nervous system? Because oftentimes you might have a lung problem, like you might have trapped energy in your lungs from an emotional trauma that you haven't overcome, that is expressing out through thoracic spine, for example. So you're not able to get the rotation that you need because you've got that energy trapped in that area. So I look at those, and like the organs, as well as what you're putting into your body, how that comes out. So what that looks like in bowel movements, like food diaries and bowel movement diaries, so that we're to the minutest level looking at human function and health, and continuously monitoring that to see where there's deficits and where we can do better.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's really cool. And the reason I bring that up is because Mick Fanning trains with Taylor Cecil, who's a friend of mine up on the Gold Coast, who is a CHEK practitioner and also DNS qualified, which is dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. So Chris Prosser, who is part of the WSL medical team, he's DNS qualified. So that, like, one of the reasons I wanted to get into surfing is because of my love of movement and human people, and bringing both of my loves together, so of surfing and of that side of things. But I'm really keen to find out who's doing that, because I know Taylor's doing it. There's a few people who are, but I was interested to hear whether your coaching and your school and what you do with those coaches incorporates that side of it as well, because I see it being so important.
Oh, definitely. I think everything that we experience, everything that we do in regards to putting things into our bodies, the things that we do in our day-to-day life, everything shows out in who we are and how our body processes and our mind processes things, every single thing that we do. And I think that when people are aware of that, then it allows them to be able to understand the responses that we then have. And I think that people are very unaware of the consequences of either what they're putting in their bodies or what they're surrounding themselves with. And so you definitely dive into the very technical parts of that. And I think we probably implement that in a much simpler form, where I very much talk to people about their day-to-day life. We talk, especially with our women, we're talking about where they're at with their cycles, what they've been doing, whether their children have been sleeping, have they been doing any exercise, you know, all those sorts of things. And then we coach a lot of women through menopause. We coach a lot of young girls through mental health, dealing with going through puberty and all that sort of stuff. So we are constantly in our surfing, we are constantly implementing, okay, this is a lifestyle choice. This is a change that we're making. And we always run through, before we ever head in the water with someone, what is it that you've been doing in the last couple of days? Or what is it that you have coming in the next couple of days? Because that will ultimately give us an explanation as to why we experience what we experience in the water. For a certain amount of our clients. Some clients are simply coming to us for progression. Some clients are coming to us for fitness. Some clients are coming to us for the on-land training pool sessions. But most of our clients, the responses that we get is through their lifestyle choices. And they come to us for us to kind of help them change their lifestyle. And we do always guide through diet as well, through environment, but getting people to understand the expectation. So we don't advise people on what they should be putting into their bodies. That's obviously their choice, but we talk them through what the expectation should be when they do come in the water, or when they do come and do any form of training with us. Okay, well, you experienced that fatigue because you were up all night, your child didn't sleep, or because you're going through your period, or because you drank too many wines last night and ate way too much chocolate, you know, and being okay with that, like going, it's okay. Like, I don't care. I love wine. I love having some chocolate. I had some wine and chocolate last night, which is probably why I woke up with a slightly sore head this morning. But, you know,
it's 80-20, 80% of what you want to achieve, 20% of what you really like to eat or drink that doesn't really make your body feel good, but knowing what that balance is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't drink wine during the week. Normally my classes were cancelled this morning. So I was like, well, I get to sleep in a little bit. You know what? I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine. And for me, because I'm constantly doing fitness, my body is very sensitive to anything that I put in my body that is not good. So I have to have quite a strict diet. But then I am okay then with the consequences. So educating people on all the elements of the changing of culture in surfing for them in their lives, no matter what it is, whether it is environmental, whether it is emotional, whether it is what we're putting in, you know, diets and stuff like that. It's very important to the consequences that we have when we are in the water.
Absolutely. You touched a little bit on that, and we probably don't have time to go into it today.
I pick up my kids.
I know. Yeah. I've got about 10 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I'll narrow it down.
We can always do another one of these.
I was going to say, I might have to get you back if that's okay, because this has been fantastic. What are the major differences that you see between coaching women and men? And are we doing that well enough yet?
This is a topic I get asked all the time. Obviously, we are an all-women surf school, but independent from that, I do coach a lot of men. And we have a lot of fathers that come through our school as well. We do a father-daughter program. So we do have some men that come through the school, which we love. Look, through the years of experience from being an athlete and also being a coach for so many years, and being in sports where it is predominantly men and boys, you know, I didn't grow up surfing with anyone else.
I was going to say, surfing is still male dominated.
Yeah, totally. I didn't grow up surfing with girls. I surfed with my brother. He was kind of my idol growing up. And my older sister, didn't surf. And I skated with my brother and I snowboarded with my brother. I did everything with my brother and his friends. I didn't have friends that were girls. To be honest, when I was younger, I kind of found them boring. And so I process things a little bit differently, in the sense where I've always just been like, oh, well, if they're doing it, then I'll do it. Whether it's a guy or a girl, it's whatever. If someone else can do it, why can't I do it?
It wasn't a consideration because it wasn't what you were, it was never an obstacle for you.
No, and I didn't realize that girls struggled a little bit more with achieving specific goals until I went through puberty. I was the first girl in Australia to play rugby union in an all boys private school team when I was young. And so that was the norm. I played with all my mates and I was the only girl, and I had a short haircut so that no one knew that I was a girl. One time a guy found out and he stomped on my face and damaged my eye socket, and I was like 9 at the time. And so it always went under the radar that I played with the boys and I looked like a boy, and so that's what I did. And then when I was 13, I had to stop playing because they were concerned about the impact, because I was going through puberty and they didn't know the consequences of that. And so I wasn't allowed to play anymore. And that was kind of when I realized, oh, okay, we're different. I didn't realize that my mates are getting much bigger than I am, and I'm changing. Actually, I'm becoming a bit curvier and getting bumps and things that were really inconvenient for me, to be brutally honest. And I didn't want to have to wear a bra and all this sort of stuff, So
and who wants to be out of the water for a week or whatever it is?
I know. I was like, this is really not okay. So that was when I kind of started to realize, okay, things are different. And I think that as I've gotten older and when I was an athlete, we had a huge number of girls that would drop out from the pressure of being away from family, of having to physically commit so much, and the emotional tolls of, going through puberty and not having that female-y, girly environment, that girls actually needed something a little bit different to guys. And when I started to coach was really when I saw it. It was as clear as day that predominantly, so I'm not saying all women, there are a lot of really strong women out there that just go for it and do it, but we're talking about the predominant group of women.
Majority of people.
Yeah, the majority of women, let's use surfing as the example, is when they're learning to surf. So when you're putting yourself in an environment that you really don't understand, they don't understand the environment, they don't understand the sport. I find that women and men process it very differently. Men, you can't talk too much. They will switch off. They just want to do go, 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 go.
The body wants to move. Yep.
Yeah, they want to move. They have the physical ability to manage their environment. It's not a question of whether they're safe. They just want to see if they can do it, and so they don't require so much nurturing and
risk analysis,
motivation and all this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, this is what you need to do. Just go out there and do it. And they'll fall and fall and fall. And then they get it, but they'll do it like 10 times and then they get it on the 10th time. So they learn from their mistakes. Whereas in women, generally speaking, I find we need to approach it differently because we don't have the ability to be as confident in our bodies. And so we're not like, okay, well, physically I can handle this, so I'll just go out there. They're like, wow, that water is going to smash me. And I've got this big board that I need to handle. And, like the board's even just heavy to carry. So you expect me to go out there and try and stand up on a surfboard? Like there's no chance. So it's going, okay, well, if you don't have that physical confidence to just go out there, which I completely understand why you don't. You're half the size of the guy I just sent out there. Let's understand technically how we can get the same result, but without having to risk your body to do it. So
or your mental health to do it.
yeah, exactly. And so the women, I find they need more guidance, they need more instruction. And when they have that, you get that same result, and you can get it in a much quicker period of time because they're learning through education, and they generally do it the first time they do it correct, or the first or second time, because they've listened, they've practiced on the beach, they understand how to manage the board, they understand what the wave is going to do. So, okay, I think I've got it. They'll go out there and do it. So yeah, women and men learn very differently. And I find that the women, if you do just approach them the same way as the men, you will not get a reoccurring client, because trust is such an important thing for women. We need to be able to trust our environment so that we feel secure to actually gain skills and become, be able to do what we want to do. We
and be
need
comfortable.
That. Yeah, exactly. And that's okay. That's who we are. That's how we work. But we get there differently, and that doesn't make someone weak or afraid, or it just means that we learn differently. And that's why I love working with coaches so much. Coaching with coaches is my favorite thing to do, because most coaches are men in the surf industry.
Yep.
That is what it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we are now in a new age of surfing where actually there may be other ways of doing things. And it's not saying that one way is better than the other, but it's going, if we work together, then we actually can help all surfers, men and women, girls and boys. We can actually be productive instead of losing this massive drop of girls in the surf industry because they're not resonating with their coach. They're not feeling that their coach understands. They're
not being heard.
Yeah, but because potentially the coach doesn't think that way. So, with a lot of the guy coaches that I work with, they're like, well, I didn't think to say that, or I didn't know that. And I'm like, of course you didn't. You don't think that way. So
and you haven't been taught you haven't been taught that yet. That's what you're here.
Exactly, because you're working on the way you process things, which is what has been done for so long. So that's where people like myself come in, where we go, okay, well, let's see if we can also do these things. We actually might be able to help more people. And it's coming together and working in a new way that allows all athletes, whether you're a man or a woman, to get equal care and guidance and nurturing and support as you transition as an athlete or as you transition as a beginner surfer, so that we get the same end goal.
Because we all want whether you're male or female as a coach, we want the same result. We want the best for our athletes.
Exactly. So that's what I think, that there's this big debate at the moment where it's like, oh, well, some women have this victim mentality, and I get some guys going, oh, well, you're saying that I'm doing the wrong thing, and I'm like, it's not that at all. We're trying to come to the same end goal, but maybe we should try, because this system works for this type of person and this system works for this type of person. But what we're finding is that these guys haven't actually had that opportunity yet. So why don't we actually come together and see if our concepts allow all athletes or all surfers to actually come to the same end goal. So
what we can learn from them and what they can learn from us complements each other.
Yeah, I love working with coaches because I learn so much. I learn so much as a coach, and I only want to get better and better. I'm so open to new concepts, and a coach will say one thing and I'm like, yeah, man, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I'm going to try that, and vice versa. But it's being open to, I think something that a lot of people struggle with is that they're not okay with saying that they don't know everything, and I blatantly say, I don't know everything,
I'm still learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to be able to sit there in a platform where people look up to you, and to be able to go, I don't know everything. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening. I need to figure it out. Maybe I have the skills. If we work together, we might be able to figure it out. But I don't know everything. I'm giving what I know, and with my years of experience and the support in the responses I've seen in my students and my athletes, then I can give guidance. But there are some things that I don't know, and I'm always learning as well. So I think coming back to it, men and women, they learn very differently, but we can get the same end result. That's the thing. And I customize my training, whether I'm coaching a man or whether I'm coaching a woman, and neither side is bad. But I think with my coaching, because I have always, I thought, and I was talking to my mum yesterday about it, because she's like, that's not masculine, G. I come from a mother who is a bit of a powerhouse. And because I kind of like, oh yeah, I've got quite a masculine way of thinking, quite simple. And I just do it. I just give it a go. And she's like, that's not masculine, and I'm going, okay, well, I don't know how to put it. But I think I resonate a lot with guys. I've always gotten along with guys really well. And I resonate with women because obviously I am a woman, but I think what women like in my training is that I do simplify things a little bit. We go through why women are feeling the way they're feeling, or why they're hesitating in these areas of where they're hesitating, but we understand it, we find a space for it, and then we simplify it so that we get that end result. And that's where I think that's probably where my skills lie a little bit, is I can banter with the boys and have a good chat with the guys, but I also can really help women understand how to get that result that they're after through working through those stages, working through their headspace, and working through their anxieties and fears and nervousness and self-doubt, so that we can still get that result.
That's awesome. I think we call that growth mindset.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely a growth mindset. I know that you need to go, so we'll finish up there. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I think I will, if it's okay with you, get you back again, because I've still got a full page worth of questions I want to speak with you about.
No, I'm so sorry. I end up talking way too much.
No, it was great. Normally that's me. So it's nice to sit back and learn and listen. So it's been fantastic. Thank you for being here with me, G.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to our next chat.
I look forward to seeing you at Urban Surf as well.
Yeah, cool. All right.